Hello, family and friends. Since we can't go to Charles, Mike and I put together this YouTube channel so we could bring Charles to you. Hope you enjoy these memories. Charles was born in Stamford, New York in June 22nd, 1950. My parents lived over the top of the Agway store, and there were two apartments up there. We lived in one, and the Whitenecks lived in the other. My dad was the manager of Agway Oil, and Karen Whiteneck's dad was the manager of the Agway Farm Store. This is Charles when he was less than a year old, with me at my grandparents' house. We used to drive down from Stamford every weekend to visit the grandparents. This is Charles's first birthday. It's Becky Brooks, Phyllis Brooks, Charles, and myself. The Brookses are from Brooks's Barbecue in Oneonta, if any of you are familiar with that. We moved from Stamford, New York to Newton, New Jersey. And Charles, I'm not sure, maybe was a year old. And he was a climber. He scared everybody to death who came into the house. This is also in Newton, New Jersey. Couldn't keep him in his crib. Surprised they actually got a picture of him there. He climbed over the gates, over the crib. He climbed up on top of the dresser that's in the back, and he'd pull the lamp off on the floor. He was always, when my dad would come home from work, he didn't know what kind of bump he'd have on his head because he was always falling from one of his climbs. Another picture of him climbing. He was climbing up on the chair in the kitchen in that house. This picture was taken when Charles was a year old. It was Charles and myself. There's 6 years difference between us, so I was 7 there. This is Charles. We're at Grandma Wilbur's house, and Karen Whiteneck was visiting with us. So it's Charles, myself, and Karen Whiteneck. This was taken after we moved back to Otisville. And he loved going over to my grandmother's. He helped them in the garden, and you could always find him over there working with them in the garden.
It's interesting that that's where he built his house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's where he built his house. I don't think he knocked the tree down, but he was taking advantage of climbing opportunities. Here's a picture with Mom, myself, Charles, and my dad. This was, again, after we moved to Otisville. This is Grandma Wilbur's house in the snow, and she lived across the street from where we were living. This is Charles with his snow fort. We built a snow fort in Grandma Wilbur's backyard. Guess who just climbed up to the top of the snow fort? Here's Dad, Charles, and myself sitting on top of Dad's Plymouth. He loved his Plymouth. Grandma had a chicken pen behind her house, Grandma Wilbur, and Charles had pet chickens that he used to bring into her house, and they'd come in and sit on the couch with him, and he took them everywhere. Here's Charles feeding his chicken. He's having a little dinner party for the chicken.